Begin the current daf, Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Tzadi. We begin 4 lines down at the top of the Yamid, where the Gemara is actually finishing up a conversation from the previous daf. We had mentioned the principle of Kinya Perez Kekinya Gufdami. If the ownership of the principle of the utility is like the ownership of the thing itself, and related to that, the Gemara says, you know what? Let's say Takanas Usha, which came into the Gemara's discussion regarding the halacha of kinya peris, because really the husband is like a lekeach harisha, and he's like a kinya peris, and that was the question regarding if the wife is allowed to sell it, or let's say when we had a story to give it to our son. Okay, so if that's kikinya guf, so even if you hold kinya peris lav kikinya guf, there was a takana and usha that they had instituted that the husband, if the wife sells it, the husband's gonna be able to get it back. We almur rabban l'shibudi debal. They gave him a very strong lien on the wife's property. The question is, the Gemara wanted to say, let's say the Takanas is machlekes tanoim. Why? Because we had two different brises. You have Eved, we know goes out b'shen v'ayin, if his eye is blinded or his tooth is knocked out. And if there's Avdi Maluk, which are properties that the wife owns, but the husband has the payers, he gets the utility. So there's halacha that when you knock out the bailim, when they do it, if the question is, does the slave go free? So one brisa said that if the woman knocks out his shen v'ayin, he goes free, but not the husband. The other brisa says not for the wife and not for the husband. So the Gemara originally thought that everyone holds kinya peris as lav kikinya gufdami. The husband's not like the owner. So what's the machlek? Is the one who says that it goes out when the wife it blinds him is because he doesn't hold the takanas usha. So therefore the wife is like the owner. But the one that says neither is because there's takanas usha, and therefore neither one of them is a full-fledged owner, because the wife has the kinya guf and the husband has this kinya peres, which and usha misakin as if he's the owner. Which Gemara says two answers and we're up to the third one. No, everyone holds of takanas usha, but one's before the takanas usha, one's after the takanas usha, or you could say they're both of them after takanas usha. But the one that says that it goes out for the woman, not for the man, holds that even though the husband has a strong shibud, but shiur is mafkim of the shibud is one of the three things, hektish, chametz, and shiur, that's mafkim of the shibud. And so what does the other Tana hold? That they hold that no, that here the Rabbanan made a stronger shibud for the husband more than in general, and therefore the wife's shiur cannot be mafkia by blinding his eye or knocking out the tooth. And we're up to the third approach. The Gemara says how to explain that machlekes in the brises without saying it's a machlekes if there's a konsus or not. Throughout the entire world. Some of these are discussed in today's daf are kinyan peris. Like we said, if you have ownership of the utility, is that kikinya guftami? Is that like ownership of the body or not? Yemi yamayim da halacha that when one kills his slave because of an injury, if he survives a day or two, then he's not responsible. You'd see b'rosh yevam the halacha that when someone injures his eved kanani, that he goes free if it's any one of the chavdal, the 24 tips of the organs, just like the shen and v'ayin. If the next Mishnah continues with the theme about chavalas, about injuring a person, if someone blows something in someone's ear, if he does things to embarrass him regarding the payment of baishes, satra, if he slaps him, the question in the Gemara, if it's kesem tzuri medina, how do we qualify the monetary payment? Is it the more expensive currency of tzuri or the cheaper provincial currency? The halach of idna sadain, could a witness become a judge? And masla edel edim, that there has to be evaluated by the witnesses and by the judges regarding was this able to create this type of injury or not. They assess the weapon to see if this could have created that type of injury or not. To begin the current daf tzadi, 4 lines down, as we said, we have this machlekes that we mentioned in a previous daf, of kinya peres kikinya gufdami, or as lav kikinya gufdami. And now the Gemara is up to the third approach to explain the two brises that we spoke about regarding this Ebed Kanani, if he goes free when the woman injures him or not. Says Gemara, if you want, you could say the kulam that according to everyone less luhulan tanoi. Actually, no, neither one of them. I mean, one of the approaches we had was that they both had. Now we're saying the third approach, Neither one of them hold of the takan of usha, and that means to say that the shibud, the lien that the husband has, is like any regular kinyan peiros that we have in general. So then, what's the machlekes that they have over here? If the isha could go ahead and cause him to go free or not? Machlekes is simply if we say the husband's kinyan of the peiros, which is by the avde malug, is that a kinyan the guf or not? If we say that it's a kinyan haguf, so then we say that the woman is not the full-fledged owner. If we say that it's not, then she is, and therefore, when she's going to injure him, the slave is going to go free. Which the Gemara says, and it's like the same machlekes tanom we had in the following brisa. Someone sells his slave, that's a Kanani, la'acher, to someone else. Now, pasuk yomai, the seller made up with the buyer, amanas sheishim sheno shleishim yom, that the condition that he could use him for the next 30 days. Meir says, Rishon yeshne b'din yomi yamayim. The first owner, the original one who made a stipulation that he could still use it for 30 days, he has the halacha of yomi yamayim. What that means to say is, if within the next 30 days he injures the slave and he doesn't die, he survives for a day or two, and then he dies, the original owner is not executed. Because the pasuk says in Shemais Chavav, if when he kills his slave, but he survives for 24 hours and then he dies, the Torah says clearly that the master is not going to be liable. Now, why is it that the first owner has this halacha, which is a leniency? Because he's still working for him for these next 30 days. But the second guy, the real buyer, if he would injure him within these 30 days, when he was still in the house of the first person, he would not have the halacha yom yamayim. He would get executed on him, even if he died from this illness at the end of 3 years. Ultimately, it's what killed him, and therefore, when you kill someone like that, you're liable. It's only an exemption for the owner of the slave. Oh, says the Gemara, Savar and Meir holds, Kinyan Peiros, the ownership of the utility, which is what the first one only has now, is Kinyan Gufdam. It's like only the body of the slave itself, and not of the second one. So therefore, that's why he has the halacha of Yom Yamayim. That's Meir. Yehuda says, no, Sheni Yeshna B'din Yom Yamayim. The second, the new owner, he, even though he doesn't get to use him yet, he has the halacha of a day or two. Neshuhu Kasboy, because it's his money. He owns him. But Ksaba Kinyan Peres obviously holds that the ownership of the first master who is still getting to use him is Lav Kikinya Gufdami, is not like the ownership of the body. So we have this machlekes, as we see here in this brisa, if Kinyan Peres Kikinya Gufdami or not. That's the machlekes from the two brises we had in the previous daf regarding when the woman goes and injures. Again, these are two different halachas. They're both by Evet Kanani, but one's an injuring and one's a killing. Killing is regarding the halacha of Yomi Yamayim, and injuring is regarding the Rashi Avam, the Shin Ba'ayin. But they're both regarding Evet Kanani, and they're both related to the owner. If the owner blinds the eye, sends him free. If the owner kills the slave, he has the exemption of a day or two. We see the same machlekes of Kinyan Peres Kikinya Gufdami. Now, Rabbi Yisrael, a third Tana, he says that actually Shneim Yeshnon B'din Yom Yamayim. Actually, both of them has the halacha of the exemption of the leniency of a day or two. Why? Because each one has a svara. Zeb Neshu Tachtav. The first guy, because Maisa, the slave, is in his possession now because he gets to work with him for 30 days. But Zeb Neshu Kasper, the second guy, because Maisa, it's his money, he owns him. Well, what does that mean? So the Gemara explains, because Mesafkale, he wasn't sure about this principle that the first two Tanam disagree about. Kinyan Peres, the ownership that the first guy has of the utility for the 30 days, is it like ownership of the body? He loved Kikinya Gufdami. So therefore, it's not clear who's, so to speak, the owner. And when we want to execute someone, we go leniently regarding capital punishment, as the Gemara tells us elsewhere in Shabbos and other places, that we go leniently, and therefore that's why both of them are going to be exempt after a 24-hour period. A fourth Tana, Rebbe Lezer Omer, he says, no, the other way around. Shneim einam b'din yom yamayim. Neither one is going to have the halachic leniency of limiting the responsibility for 24 hours. The the second guy because the slave is not by him right now, and the first guy because it's not his money. So the Gemara wonders, didn't we just say like the third Tana that when you have Safik Nefashos go lahakal, why is this a reason to be hold both of them liable? So Amakra, because the pasuk says Kikaspehu. Torah says, why is there a little halachic leniency that only he's going to be executed if he dies within 24 hours? Because it's Kaspehu, because it's money. Kaspoi means Kaspa Meyuchalai, the money that's designated of him. It's not designated because each one is missing part of what you generally have of Tachtab or Kaspoi, and therefore that's why they're both going to be liable. Says the Gemara, Kaman Azla Hadam Amemer. According to which Tana did Amemer say his Amareg teaching? He said the following halacha. It says, Ish ve'isha shemachru b'nichsim elug. A man and a woman, a husband and wife, that sold the wife's nichsim elug. And as Rashi tells us, even if they both sold it together, loy asub loy klum, they haven't done anything. Because it doesn't belong to this one, and it doesn't belong to this one. And meaning to the husband or to the wife. And if one of them die, the remaining one will remove it from the buyer. Because as Rashi explains, this is not the same thing as regular partners, because what was this, and then partners should never be able to sell either. It's not true, because there, that this partner has a portion in the whole thing to take half, and this one also. But here, the whole evet is acquired to the woman in the body of it, and it's all acquired to the husband regarding its payers. So it's not designated for either one of them any whole part of the slave.
Even if they both agree to it?
Yeah, that's the saying.
So
because
never saw anything a woman comes to
no, in the Nichsim Elug, right? In the Nichsim Elug, they can't, that according to this Tana, you can't, that's what we're asking. I mean, we said this teaching, that if they sell the Nichsim Elug, they haven't done anything because you don't really own it to be able to sell it. Come on, Rabbi Eliezer, because Rabbi Eliezer told us it's not kaspai, as we find by the Eved, and therefore you can't sell what's not yours. So it says the Gemara, continue on this theme about man tan lahad the tarnaban. So who's the tan of the following brisa? Said, someone was, let's say, owned by two masters, and one of them let him free. So now he's half slave, half free person. Or a slave owned by two partners. Allah is ein yutzim b'rashi avarim shein nechaisim. We know generally a Ebed Kanani who is injured with one of his 24 primary limbs that the slave goes free, and as the Gemara says, the first Kedusha of Chavim and Aleph, that this brisa says, but if it's owned by partners or if he's half free, half slave, if the master injures him in one of these 24 Rosh Hashanah, he's not going to go free. Who is that? And the Gemara Ravashi says, this is what I said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Mila Rabbi Eliezer didn't Rabbi Eliezer say kaspa miyuchadloi, that for it to be qualified v'alacha b'yem yemaim has to be kasboi, his money. Here it also, when it talks about the slave being injured, it talks about avdoi, and here it's not going to be avdoi because it's not owned by one person, and therefore that's why it won't qualify with halacha of the Rashi Evan. Now we continue halacha. The next Mishnah, again, continue on the theme of this parak of Achayvul regarding the Adam Hamazik, as we said in the beginning of the Masechta of Mavaz Adam. We're talking about a person that injures another person. We said there's in the opening Mishnah, there's a chiv of chamisha dvarim. So now continue on the theme about busha, but humiliation. The Mishnah describes many different types of way of humiliating another person, and regarding the monetary compensation that you have to give him. So Rashi says either means to say you hit him on his ear, that's from his Rebbe, or it means literally blow. You take a shofar, you take a trumpet, and you blow in his ear. So the halacha is nicely sela. So as Rashi says in Kedushin, meaning when we say give him a sela, it means to say just for the money of his busha. Besides for the tsar and the nezik and the ripo, if it's applicable, if he has to go now for hearing aids or whatever, we're not talking about that. We're talking about just for the shame of blowing in his ear. So you pay him a sela. He says mana. Says it's 100 dinarim. That's what you give. Now, satarai, if someone gets a slap on his cheek, so meaning this that we said it's a sela. This is Rabbi Huda who says it's a mana is actually 25 slams. So he's actually obligating 25 times of the Tanakama. So he holds is obviously more of a obligation. It's a bigger shame. So Tare, if someone slaps someone on the cheek, nicely Masayim zuz, give him 200 zuz. La'achar yadi does it backhanded. That's even more embarrassing. Nicely Abamei zuz, you give him 400 zuz. Now, Tzarem ba'aznai, if you pull him by the ear, or Talish b'saroi, or you tear him by the hair, or Rokak v'higi by roikai, or he spits at him, and the spit hits the person, or Hever talisa mimenu, or people would wear their their talis, a cloak or whatever, and he pulls off the talis off of him, or Paradaish Bashoko, he uncovers the head of a woman, her hair in the street. All these things are very embarrassing. You have to give 400 zuz. Right. So actually, look at Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, Zaklal, this is the rule. Everything is according to the honor of the person. The Gemara is going to explain is right. So the Gemara is going to explain, is that a leniency, is that a stringency? In other words, is this like a baseline? Is this a max? And then we go within the range, right? So that's exactly what the Gemara is going to discuss regarding what are these absolute numbers that you're giving. Sometimes we do. I said previously, sometimes we give absolute numbers that even though you're right, sometimes it's going to depend on the person. But that's the opinion of Bava Kama. So Rabbi Kiva says, Afil anim should be Yisrael. He says even the paupers amongst the Jewish people, we look at them as if they were free men who lost their assets, but they still have a lot of pride. So we'll see in the Gemara exactly what is he trying to say, but it sounds like he's saying that this is you definitely this is the minimum. I mean, even poor people will have this type of payment. Now, there was a story with an individual that he uncovered the hair of a woman in the street. So, this woman came with her umbrage in front of Rabbi Kiva. He obligated that man who embarrassed her to give her 400 zuz. So he said to Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi, my teacher, tell me zman, give me time to make my my case till I pay up. Kiva gave him time. Now Shamra, he waited for the woman until he saw her standing by the opening of her courtyard. What did he do? So he took a jug and he broke it in front of her. And it had the amount of oil that could be bought with an isser, a small coin. So what did the woman do? Gil says Raisha. She uncovered her hair. So she took her kerchief and she was manachas yad al Raisha, right? And she put her hand on her head so that she could use that oil that was on the ground. So Hamadallah Eidim. So that man quickly got 2 witnesses instead of the phone that everyone has these days. Quickly getting the care. In those days, you had to get 2 witnesses. Rabbi Kiva, and he came in for the Rabbi Kiva. So Amalei. So as the Bach adds on the word Rabbi, he said to Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi, Lazuani Nice and Dal Meizuz. This is the woman I'm going to give 400 zuz. This woman is she has not a semblance of pride. She took off her head covering for a little bit of oil. I'm going to go compensate her 400 zuz for the shame. So Amalei said to him, Loy mataklum, you haven't said anything. If someone injures themselves, although you're not allowed to injure yourself, as the Gemara is going to explain the reasoning, yet Potter, if someone injures themselves, they're exempt. But if others injure them, they're going to be chayiv. He gives them another mashal. He says, someone cuts down their saplings. Although a person is not allowed to cut down their cherry tree because they violate Bal Tashchis, right? Because you're not allowed to destroy a fruit tree. Potter is still exempt. And if others do it too, they're going to be liable. As the Gemara said in Akonis Abnun Chesem Beis, if it was a sapling in the first year, it's 2 silver coins, whatever. So basically, he's saying because she embarrassed herself and she will do that, that has nothing to do with you embarrassing her, as we find that Rabbi Kiva was saying in our Mishnah, that even Anim Shabi Yisrael, we see them as if they're respectable, reputable people, and therefore, even though she takes off her hair covering for a little bit of oil, you're still going to be responsible for embarrassing her, the 400 says. Now, the Gemara, we're going to the opening halacha of the Mishnah of Hatekeya. If someone goes and blows Oznei Chaveroi, so the Bava Kama says you give a sela. If you this is in Risaglili, you give a mana. So the following question: Mana tzuritnan? This that he says it's a mana. Is it a mana of tzuri of tire, meaning which is 25 slum, which is 100 zuz, or mana medinatnan? Or is it a provincial mana, which is an eighth of a mana tzuri, because a sela medina is only a half a zuz, as the Gemara said on Daf Lamed Zayin and Aleph. So that's a huge difference about how much Rabbi Yossi is being mechayiv, the one who's doing the pucha, by blowing in the ear. Is it? It's a difference of an eighth of the amount. So which one is it? Is it mana tzuri or mana medina? Right. We're only discussing the bush over here, not discussing nezek. Yeah. It's embarrassing. Some guy walks up to you and they in your ear. It's embarrassing when people do these things to us. So the Gemara says, Tashma, it's being raya, dahu gaved the takal el. There was a story that a guy struck another person on his ear. Asla came from the Yehuda Nisiya. With words. So that's brought up, yeah. That doesn't have so much value as we'll see in the Gemara. But Al Kapanim, by doing these things, when there's an action, as we generally live in the world of action, then there's liability. So this guy, the victim, came in front of Rabbi Yehuda and Amalei said to him, "Look, Hana, there's me. Rabbi Yossi Glili is Yossi Glili," and he told the perpetrator, "Havli monetzuri, give me a monetzuri." Shmamina monetzuri. It's the larger amount. It's not 12.5 zuz. It's 100 zuz. Tyrant currency, which is worth eight times more, is what is obligating him to give for the shame of striking this person on the ear. Okay, now that we wrote down this story, the Gemara just wants to understand what does it mean. What did it mean when he said there's me and there's Rabbi Glili? I mean, Rabbi Glili was the opinion. Well, you have to give a mana, and we just brought a raya that it means a mana tzuri, the more expensive mana. Fine. But what does it mean? There's me and there's Rabbi Glili. Says Gemara, if you think it means he was telling him like this. Look, there's me, meaning there's me, Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya, that I saw you. Rabbi Yossi Glili, Dama Manatzuri, and he says a Manatzuri. So Zil Havle Manatzuri is to give the victim a Manatzuri. Says Gemara, remember that to say the Eid Nasadayin? Meaning, what's Ha'ana? Meaning Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya was saying that I saw the story, I saw you bang him on the ear, and therefore now you have to go pay. So what do you mean? The witness, Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya, could be the judge to paskin this halacha? By the time when the Braisa Sanhedrin Shiro Echad Shar gets a nefesh, if the high court saw someone murdering another person, so there's a machlekes exactly what to do. Miktsasan, the first opinion says Miktsasan Nasu Edim, so some of the members of the court will be the witnesses. Miktsasan Nasu Dayan, and some of them will be the judges. That's the Rib Tarfin. That's how you should do it to execute this murderer. Kivayim says no. Kul made mehem, the all witnesses, they were all there. There's mamash, there was the gathering in front of. They took the group picture. The Sanhedrin were there, and as they're taking this group picture, they see some guy come and stab another guy and kill him to death. The all witnesses, they need nasadayin. Says Rabbi Kiva, no, a witness cannot become a judge, and that's it. They can't prosecute him. Fine, but Ad can come Reb Tarfin, even Reb Tarfin, that he was saying that there'll be judges and there's witnesses. Was Eldem Miktasan Nasu Edim Miktasan Nasu Dayanan. He said, okay, the fact that you were there doesn't make you automatically a witness like Rabbi Kiva. You have to want to be witnessing, and therefore some will be witnesses, some will be judges. Fine. No one says a witness can become a judge. So how could you interpret that the Yehuda Nisiya was telling the guy, there's me and the Rabbi Glili, that I saw you and Rabbi Glili, paskins like that, but that would be Eid Nasadayin. Says the Gemara, no, it's not a difficulty. Because Kitanya he. When did the Brisa say it's halacha that we just quoted the Sanhedrin that saw someone kill someone? Balayla. They saw him kill him at nighttime. Ninu, where they weren't able to go ahead and make a judgment then, because you can't judge at nighttime. So tomorrow, when they're going to come to judge, they're going to be judging only based on testimony, because at the court there has to be some verification. So therefore, some of them are going to have to testify. Now, if there's only 3, you'd have to have others sit, and they would have to testify in front of them. Fine. But if they saw it during the daytime, then you could do based on their own visual, according to Reb Tarfon, right away. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya held the Reb Tarfon that yes, the aide who's I'm the judge, I see the thing happening. Of course, I could possibly. I don't need an aide. I don't have to have any testimony because it's happening right now. But if it was at nighttime, so then what you're seeing is not being able to be done right now. You have to do it in the court. You can't say, "Oh, I saw yesterday." You would have to testify that you saw. Well, then you're an aide. So then the aide wouldn't be able to be nasadain. But regarding what the dain saw himself, that is no problem, and therefore it could be ha'anoha basically meant that I saw you do it. Go pay him, and that's based on the opinion of basically. That's one approach. Or if you want, you could say hachakamalei. What was Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya telling him was like this: no, there is me. This really basically that I hold basically. That he says manatzuri that the payment of tekeh b'chavera is a tyrant mana. And yes, there are witnesses that can testify regarding what you did to the victim. Zilhavle manatzuris, or give him manatzura. Those are 2 different interpretations. What did Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya mean when he said ha'ana b'yisek? And again, the reason why we brought that in was because you see that he told him to give him a manatzuri, which answered our question: which mana did Rabbi Yisek Lili hold in the Mishnah to give her? Was it a mana Medina or the more expensive mana tzuri? Like we said, it's the mana tzuri. But now, once we brought in this brisa, which we had asked on the first interpretation of what did Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya mean, ha'anoha b'yisek Lili, was that I saw you, Rabbi Yisek Lili, paskin like that, and therefore you owe it to him. We had asked, wait a second, how could that be? But that would be Eid Nasadayin, and we don't hold of Eid Nasadayin. So, and we brought a brisa that had Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon. So now, once we brought that in, the Gemara asks on the brisa. So Rabbi Kiva, does Rabbi Kiva really hold the Eid Nasadayin? Because he was clearly Eid Nasadayin. He says all the Sanhedrin are Eidim, and therefore none of them can be Dayanim. Is that really so? Rabbi Kiva holds that a witness cannot become a judge. I have a time on the brisa not like this. Pasuk says in Shemais, if a person will hit his friend with a stone or with his fist. So what the pasuk is saying, you're injuring a person. This is actually regarding the Chamisha Dvarim, next week's parashah, Mishpatim. And so Shimon HaTimni Omi says, there's 2 items being mentioned here in the pasuk: a stone and a fist. Ma'agrif miyuchad, just like the fist is distinct. Shemasur le'eda u'le'edim, that is given over to the Eda, which is the terminology for Bezdin, and for the witnesses. Meaning, you could bring the guy's fist to court to make an assessment. Is this fist fit to have made this injury? If it's not, he won't have to pay. Because it's not because his fist that this guy got injured, because the weakness of the victim and the softness that he was injured. And that's something that you could do with a guy's fist. So too, anything that can be given over to the judges and to the witnesses, that type of a rock, let's say, is what you're going to be chayiv for. That excludes if it already left the hands of the witnesses, meaning the witnesses had the rock, but they lost it, and the courts are not seeing it. Even though the witnesses saw that the rock could have injured, the perpetrator is going to be patur, because you need to have an evaluation in court. As you see from Egreif, from the fist, that is something that can be brought to court. So too, the other item the pasuk mentioned, like the Evan, has to be something that can be brought to court. If it's not, then the court doesn't know. It says, yes, witnesses, we know that the guy, threw a rock at him, but we don't know if this rock could have injured, and we have to see. Exactly, we wouldn't have to have the evidence, according to this, what the Bryce is saying, to prove that this was the case. Now, that's the Tana Kama. Rabbi Kiva said, he says, what do you mean? How does this help? Okay, let's say you bring the rock to court. What you think that the guy hit him in front of the court? That they know kama hiko? In other words, that they know the number of times he hit him that you could evaluate. Mahikahu, on which one of his limbs, on his organs did he hit him? Was it on his thigh? Which a terminology, there's like a lobe that's opposite the heart, which is easy to get injured over there. Which like the bird of his soul, meaning it's like something that flutters. It's a very vulnerable spot. So even if you bring the rock, that doesn't tell us. Moreover, let's say a guy pushes his friend off the top of a roof, or the top of a building, and Mason he dies. You think the court goes to the building? You think the pasuk requires the courts to go out of the Lishka Sanhedrin and to see it? Does the building go to the judges, to the court? I mean, how does it help? You think you're going to figure out all the criterion? Moreover, in Nafla, let's say the building collapsed before the courts, the judges got to come there. You think the pasuk requires that Chayzer Bain, they got to rebuild it to show the courts the height of the building? Obviously, Ella rather holds Rabbi Kiva, we rely on the witnesses. Since the witnesses saw, we rely on their testimony that they tell us this and this is what it was, and we don't need it masur le'eda, that it should be given over to, evaluated by the judges. It's just a masur le'edim, only that it should be given over to the witnesses. And rather, this is how you have to interpret it, says Rabbi Kiva. Ma egrif meyuchad, just like the fist is distinct to masur le'edim, which is given over that the witnesses could see his fist, to see if this punch was deserving of knocking this guy out. Of course, so to anything that's given over to the witnesses, that the witnesses saw this rock and said, "Oh, that was a rock. Of course, that could injure a person." What we're excluding is not if it didn't get to the courts. What we're excluding is if the guy who threw it then fell into the river, and then let's say the witnesses themselves didn't get to see it. Then potter, because like we don't know, was that ball hollow, and we don't know what type of ball it was, what type of rock it was. Then you be potter. Okay, that's machlekes Rabbi Kiva in the Tana Kama. Regarding has to be masur le'eda ula edim or only masur le'edim. Fine. But Ketani Miyas, one thing is that we learned there in the Brayso that Rabbi Kiva said to the Tana Kama, what you think the guy hit the guy in front of the court, that they know how many times he hit him, etc. Now, the inference is, what it sounds like is, had he hit him in front of the judges, it sounds like that the judges would be able to prosecute him because of Eid Nasadayin. The judges who are witnessing would be able to judge them. So you see that Rabbi Kiva does hold of Eid Nasadayin. Says the Gemara, no, L'dvav Reb Shimon HaTimni Kamar. He was going, the Tana Kama, Shimon HaTimni, who said this halacha, that has been masur le'edu le'edim, he holds of the halacha of Eid Nasadayin. And then Rabbi Kiva is saying, yeah, I understand, but that should only work. I mean, that doesn't require that it has to be masur le'edu le'edim. All we have to have is masur le'edim, but Rabbi Kiva himself does not hold of Eid Nasadayin. Now, continuing on relating to this, relating back to this halacha, it says we want to turn about in the Brayso. Shor tam shehemis, the first time or shiur that kills a person, and then vehizik, and then he damages. So what's the halacha? So it says the Brayso like this: Dana noisa did nefashis. We judge the shor tam for the capital punishment for having killed a person. We don't judge him for the damage that he subsequently did for monetary liability, because a shor tam only pays megufay. So you could only collect from the body of the shor. But the thing is the shor is already being stoned to death for having killed a person. So therefore, we don't make any monetary judgment for the damage that he subsequently did. That's for a shor tam. Mu'it shehem is v'hizik, but regarding a shor mu'it, it already did it a few times. That kills a person and damages. So you judge it for the monetary liability of the damage that it did. And then you go and you judge it for the capital punishment for having killed a person. So you'll end up killing the shor for killing a person. but you'll be able to collect for the hezek because shar muad, the payment is not just from the body of the shar, the payment is from min aliyah, even from the guy's bank account. So you'll first judge him din mamnis, and then judge him din nefashis, so that you could incriminate him for both of them. Now, what happens if kadma b'dino din nefashis? What happens if they first judge the shar muad for the capital punishment that it did? Then then you don't go back now and say, wait a second, hold off. Don't kill the animal yet. We want to judge it first for the hezek that it did so that we could obligate the owner. We don't say that. Now, says the Gemara, this said you first judged the animal for having killed the person. Who cares? Why don't you go back now and judge it for the monetary liability of the hezek that it did? So Rabbi says, the Asper Kama says, I found the yeshiva students. They were sitting and they said, Hamnani, who is the Tana? This Brisa, Reb Shimon Timnahi, which we just discussed just before. Nama that he says, Ma egrif meyuchad, just like a fist is designated Shemasal Eidul Eidim, that it can be given over to the witnesses and to the judges, that you have to be able to have it evaluated, be able to be assessed. It says Getin Tabav Tzadi Aleph and Aleph. So Amma, we see, what does Shimon Timni hold? That when you have an injury, has to be assessed in court of law. Oh, even for nizak and even for damages, because like Rashi points out, this pasuk of Egrif is in the pasuk of when a person damages another person. Like it says, if a man injures his friend with a stone or a fist and the guy doesn't die. Oh, so you see, for nizak, you have to have the value, you have to be able to have assessments. Here also, you have to evaluate the shar if he's fit to have done this goring that created this injury. Now, so that's part of it. Now, says the Gemara, Kiman the Gamar din liktala. Now, since you did din nefashos first, and the verdict has already been handed down to execute the shar muid, we don't hold on to him. We don't delay till now, because you have to delay, because you have to evaluate, you have to look at the shar, you have to see how strong his horns are, and we don't afflict his judgment, meaning just like we know by a person, we want to execute him because it's painful for him on death row. So too for the animal, we don't afflict that judgment. We execute him right away, and therefore not going to be done dinamanis. That's what the yeshiva student said. It says, and I said to them, it doesn't have to be just like Shimon Timni. I feel like you could even say it's Rabbi Kiva that doesn't require an umdana. Who says like you don't have to have the judges evaluating the shar. They don't have to evaluate the fist and the stone. So why over here don't you subsequently judge in the mamnis? Because the owner fled. The owner of the animal ran away. He's a fugitive. And the halach is you cannot prosecute him when he's not here. That's why you're not going to be done in the mamnis. Says the Gemara, if he ran away, then even if kiloi danu din nefashos, then even if they didn't first, you told me that in the Bryce it's only because they did din nefashos first, you're not going to go back to doing din mamnis. But I mean, even if they didn't prosecute him for capital punishment, how could you judge the guy for the monetary liability without the owners there? Says no, the Kabbalah Sahadi, we're talking about where we received testimony, the witnesses regarding the gorings that the ox did, and only then he ran away. Oh, so therefore, the first point we want to bring out is that there's nowhere to collect from because we're talking about where the guy doesn't have any assets. So therefore, that's why there's no point in doing din imamnis now, because you're going to kill this animal anyway. So you can't collect from the animal because you killed the person. So you'll say, but let's get din imamnis. It's a sharmud. You collect min aliyah. What min aliyah? The guy's not here. The guy left nothing here, and the guy ran away. So you're not going to do any din imamnis. So the Gemara says, but wait, save. At the end of the day, so then when you don't, let's say, so when you didn't judge him for capital punishment, so mehechem ishtalim. So we're going to collect from, since the owner ran away. So how does it help? You told me that what you should first do is do din imamnis first, and then do din nefashos. But what does it help? If you tell me the guy ran away, so I understand if you first did din nefashos, you said don't do din imamnis. No point. You're not going to collect. So who cares? Even if you do din imamnis first and then din nefashos, how's that going to help either? You're going to end up executing the ox anyway, and the guys ran away. So how are you going to collect from there's no way to collect from even from the animal itself. Says the Gemara, no, meridja. You delay the ox from prosecuting him for the capital punishment if you do din imamnis first for plowing, for renting him out. You pay back to the victim, and then you'll judge him between the fashas. But that's what the Bride says. If you first had judged him to be stoned, we're not going to afflict his judgment to delay him for all that plowing. That's the difference between if you did in the fashas yet or not. So the Gemara says, wait a second, if that's the case, and that's how you explain it by a mu'id, so then the same thing is in the first case of the brisa. Why don't you say the same thing? The Dan did the mom's b'reisha. First, take him to court for the monetary liability of the damages first, and the shalmeridja, and you'll collect from the plowing that you rent out this ox. Well, then the Dan did the fashas. Then you'll prosecute the ox. But then the fashas. So, but you'll be able to collect. You're talking about Shartam with Megufa. Oh, there's nowhere to collect from. We just prosecute him and we execute him, and that's it. Why? Why don't you collect from Midya? And then v'hadin and dan in the fashas. Says Gemara, no. Amar Amari B'Rei Bava Kama says interesting. This tells us ridya, that the plowing that you get out of the animal, aliyah demarahu. That's the money of the master. That's not in the gufa shalshar. That's like all the other assets of the owners. Tam does not collect min ha'aliyah. Doesn't collect from his bank account. It only collects from the gufa shar. That's not gufa shar. So even though it's like, well, what does this guy have to lose? You're going to execute the animal. Just work it first and give that to pay the victim. No, we don't, because that's not the gufa. That's min ha'aliyah, and therefore that's why we're going to stone the animal. Which Taisus has an interesting question. He says, I don't understand. Why don't you just let the victim collect the shar and don't call it anymore the aliyah of the master? Let him collect that. Let him collect that, the shar itself, not the plowing. The plowing you're always ma'aliyah the shar, ma'aliyah of the bailam. But let him take the actual shar. That's oh no, so no. So we're saying before, don't judge me a din nefashis in the shar tam. No, that's the same. Don't do the din nefashis. The Brisa says, yeah, the din nefashis, there's nothing else to do, because we're saying ridya is min aliyah, but collect the actual shar itself. So it says that if the victim is going to totally collect the animal, then they wouldn't wait till he pays up min ridya. Just like we don't wait for the owners. If they say wait till I plow it a little bit and then stone it, we say we have to down it in the fashis. It wouldn't help anyway. Thank you to any time for us. Yes.